Hi, and thank you for tuning in to the Daily Dose for Spiritual Growth. Kind of left you on a cliffhanger yesterday. We're going to continue the story from Genesis 41 when Pharaoh had some troubling dreams. Some dreams about 7 healthy cows and 7 scrawny cows, and the scrawny ones ate the healthy ones, about some grains that did the same. And then he went to his chief officials, his magicians, his fortune tellers, the wise men, and they couldn't help him out. And so now we're going to find out where he turns next. This is in Genesis chapter 41, beginning in verse 9. It's a little bit longer section that we're going to read today, and so I'm just going to read it through, and then we'll chat about it a little bit at the end. It says, finally, the king's chief cupbearer spoke up. He finally remembered. He said, "Today I have been reminded of my failure." He told Pharaoh, "Some time ago, you were angry with the chief baker and me, and you imprisoned us in the palace of the captain of the guard. One night, the chief baker and I each had a dream." This is what we read earlier on Monday and Tuesday. "And each dream had its own meaning. There was a young Hebrew man with us in the prison who was a slave of the captain of the guard. We told him our dreams, and he told us what each of our dreams meant. And everything happened just as he had predicted. I was restored to my position as cupbearer, and the chief baker was executed and impaled on a pole. Pharaoh sent for Joseph at once, and he was quickly brought from the prison. After he shaved and changed his clothes, he went in and stood before Pharaoh. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, 'I had a dream last night, and no one here can tell me what it means. But I have heard that when you hear about a dream, you can interpret it.' 'It is beyond my power to do this,' Joseph replied, but God. But God can tell you what it means and set you at ease." And so Pharaoh told Joseph his dream. "In my dream," he said, "I was standing on the bank of the Nile River, and I saw 7 fat, healthy cows come up out of the river and begin grazing in the marsh grass. But when I saw 7 sick-looking cows, scrawny and thin, come up after them. I'd never seen such sorry-looking animals in all the land of Egypt. These thin, scrawny cows ate the 7 fat cows. But afterward, you wouldn't have known it, for they were still as thin and scrawny as before. Then I woke up. In my dream, I also saw 7 heads of grain, full and beautiful, growing on a single stalk. Then 7 more heads of grain appeared, but these were blighted, shriveled, and withered by the east wind. And the shriveled heads swallowed the 7 healthy heads. I told these dreams to the magicians, but no one could tell me what they mean." Verse 25, Joseph responded, "Both of Pharaoh's dreams mean the same thing. God is telling Pharaoh in advance what he is about to do. The 7 healthy cows and the 7 healthy heads of grain both represent 7 years of prosperity. The 7 thin, scrawny cows that came up later and the 7 heads of grain withered by the east wind represent 7 years of famine. This will happen just as I have described it. God has revealed to Pharaoh in advance what he is about to do. The next 7 years will be a period of great prosperity throughout the land of Egypt. But afterward, there will be 7 years of famine so great that all the prosperity will be forgotten in Egypt. Famine will destroy the land. This famine will be so severe that even the memory of the good years will be erased. As for having 2 similar dreams, it means that these events have been decreed by God, and he will soon make them happen. Therefore, Pharaoh should find an intelligent and wise man and put him in charge of the entire land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh should appoint supervisors over the land and let them collect 1/5 of all the crops during the 7 good years. Have them gather all the food produced in the good years and that are just ahead and bring it to Pharaoh's storehouses. Store it away and guard it so there will be food in the cities. That way, they will be enough to eat when the 7 years of famine come to the land of Egypt. Otherwise, this famine will destroy the land." This story is so interesting for several reasons. We see here that God wanted to get Pharaoh's attention. And I think it's beautiful in the description and the interpretation that Joseph gives. He makes a point to say the goodness of God, the graciousness of God. Hey, Pharaoh, this dream is from God. And God graciously is giving you a snapshot of what is about to happen. He's telling you what he's about to do. Why? So that you can prepare. This would have spoken volumes to Pharaoh, a king, a leader, to see the wisdom of God, but also as the story unfolds, to see the faithfulness of God in sending Joseph. As you can imagine, as we'll see tomorrow, Pharaoh is amazed. But what I also want to remind you is something we talked about earlier this week, which is Joseph adamantly, again and again, pointed the power, gave the credit back to God. We see such a humility in this man. In no way is he trying to get accolades or attention. In no way is he trying to get favor from the king. He's simply using the opportunity that God gave him. But before we even see what happens moving forward, can we take a moment and reflect on what has already happened? You know, we shared a song with you on Wednesday called Bigger Dreams, and I talked about how sometimes we find ourselves in seasons of life where we didn't know how we got here and we feel stuck. And yet we need to be reminded to dream bigger dreams, that God has bigger dreams for us than we can even imagine. We need to stay steadfast. And we see Joseph here had spent time in prison already, and then another 2 years had gone by. And yet from a moment, he went from a prison to a palace. I'm imagining that Joseph never imagined he would find himself with the audience of the king, a king who now needed him. It's incredible what God can do. Don't underestimate what God is doing through your practiced faithfulness to him. You know, it wasn't that Joseph wasn't able to interpret these dreams because he spent those years studying dreams. No, instead, during that time, he very likely just spent time with God. He became a person who knew God. And so when God opened up an opportunity, he didn't have to rely on his own ability. He didn't have to rely on his own wisdom. He was able to rely on the thing that he already invested in, his relationship and access to the Lord Almighty. In seasons of waiting, we don't sit idle. We continue to pursue God. We continue to want to ready ourselves that when an opportunity is brought to us, we are ready to be used by God. We are ready to step into that new opportunity. During this season in your life, what might God be preparing you for? What faithfulness, what consistency in your relationship with him is necessary in order to prepare you for what's next? I always say that what I'm going through right now is a crash course in what's coming. And so I don't want to waste these moments. I don't always know what's around the bend, but I'm following the one who does. And so let's keep our eyes fixed on Jesus, as Hebrews 12:2 says, the author and perfecter of our faith. He knows all things. We can trust our guide. We don't have to worry about where we're headed as long as we're following the right person. And if you keep your eyes fixed on God, if you keep your eyes fixed on him and working on your relationship with him, whatever comes your way, whether you find yourself in a prison or a palace, you can be confident that he will work through you. Hey, I want to thank you so much for tuning in today, and I hope to see you again tomorrow for another daily dose for spiritual growth.